Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist. Tonight we're journeying back through deep time, back to an Earth that would seem alien to us. A world ruled by creatures so magnificent and strange, they continue to captivate our imagination. We'll walk alongside the dinosaurs, from their first uncertain steps in the Triassic to their dramatic end, 66 million years ago. We'll explore the giants that shook the ground, the hunters that ruled through fear, and the delicate connections linking those ancient beasts to the birds singing outside your window. So settle in, let your mind wander through millennia, and allow the story of these vanished titans to carry you gently toward rest. And just before we begin, if these calm, curious explorations help you unwind or give you a quiet way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. The story of the dinosaurs begins. Long before humans, before mammals walked in daylight, before flowers bloomed across the land, there were the dinosaurs. Their story spans over 170 million years, a reign so long it's almost incomprehensible. To put it in perspective, Tyrannosaurus rex lived closer in time to us than it did to Stegosaurus. The dinosaurs weren't a single moment in Earth's history. They were an era, evolving and diversifying across three distinct geological periods: the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. During this time, they adapted to every available niche. Some grew to sizes never seen before or since on land. Others became swift hunters. Some developed armor, spikes, and shields. A few even took to the air, though those weren't technically dinosaurs, but their flying cousins. The story of dinosaurs is one of adaptation, survival, and ultimately, catastrophe. But it's also a story of legacy, because the dinosaurs never truly vanished. Every time you see a bird take flight, you're watching a living dinosaur, a descendant of those ancient creatures, carrying forward a lineage that began in the Triassic dawn, the ancient Earth, before the giants. Picture Earth, 250 million years ago. The world looked nothing like today. All the continents were fused into a single massive landmass called Pangaea, a supercontinent stretching from pole to pole. There were no polar ice caps. The climate was hot and dry across much of the interior, with monsoons drenching the coasts. The oceans teemed with strange life, trilobites in their final days, early marine reptiles testing the waters. On land, the dominant creatures were not dinosaurs but their predecessors. Synapsids, the ancestors of mammals, had ruled the Permian period, but were decimated by the greatest mass extinction Earth has ever known, the Permian-Triassic extinction, sometimes called the Great Dying, wiped out 96% of marine species and 70% of land vertebrates. Life teetered on the edge of oblivion. But from this devastation came opportunity. The early Triassic was a recovery period, ecosystems slowly rebuilding from catastrophe. Into this world emerged new reptile groups, experimenting with different body plans and lifestyles. Among them were the archosaurs, the ruling reptiles, ancestors to both crocodiles and dinosaurs. The stage was set for something extraordinary: the world of the Triassic period. The Triassic period began 252 million years ago in the aftermath of extinction. It was a time of experimentation when evolution tested countless forms. The climate was extreme. The interior of Pangaea was desert, harsh and unforgiving, while coastal regions experienced seasonal monsoons. There were no grass plains, no flowers. Instead, ferns, conifers, and cycads dominated the landscape. Early dinosaurs shared this world with many other creatures. Cynodonts, mammal-like reptiles, scurried through undergrowth. Early crocodile relatives walked on long legs. Some were swift predators, others herbivores. Flying reptiles were just beginning to experiment with flight. The Triassic was not yet the age of dinosaurs. They were present but small, relatively rare, overshadowed by other reptile groups. But they possessed certain advantages: their upright posture, Legs positioned directly beneath their bodies, rather than sprawling to the sides, gave them efficiency in movement. Their respiratory system was advanced, perhaps including air sacs, like modern birds, making them efficient breathers. These advantages were subtle, not immediately dominant, but they would prove crucial. When another extinction event struck at the end of the Triassic, many competitors vanished. The dinosaurs survived, and in the Jurassic that followed, they flourished. The first reptiles to rule the land. Before dinosaurs dominated, other reptiles held sway. In the early Triassic, creatures like Lystrosaurus, a herbivorous synapsid about the size of a pig, were among the most common animals, survivors of the Permian extinction. But the archosaurs were rising. This group included the ancestors of crocodiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs. They were distinguished by specific skull features, openings in the skull that reduced weight while maintaining strength, teeth set in sockets rather than fused to the jaw. Early archosaurs were diverse. Some, like Euparkeria, were small, agile predators. Others, like the Rossuchians, grew large and fierce, apex predators of their time, with powerful jaws and semi-upright posture. These weren't dinosaurs, but competed in similar niches. The earliest true dinosaurs appeared in the Middle Triassic, around 230 million years ago. Creatures like Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus were small bipedal carnivores, no larger than a human. They were swift and opportunistic, not yet dominant, but present. What set dinosaurs apart was subtle: their fully upright stance, their hip structure, the way their limbs moved. These features would allow them to diversify explosively once circumstances favored them, eventually displacing competitors and claiming the title of Earth's ruling reptiles. The rise of the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs' rise to dominance wasn't immediate. For much of the Triassic, they remained relatively minor players in ecosystems, dominated by other archosaurs and synapsids. Then came the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event, about 201 million years ago. The causes remain debated. Massive volcanic eruptions in the central Atlantic magmatic province released enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and sulfur, causing rapid climate change. Ocean acidification killed marine life. On land, many large reptiles vanished, but dinosaurs survived. Perhaps their efficient respiratory systems helped in the changing atmosphere. Perhaps their adaptable metabolism gave them an edge. Whatever the reason, they emerged from the extinction into a world with vacant ecological niches. They radiated rapidly, diversifying into the three main groups that would define the Mesozoic: theropods, bipedal carnivores ranging from chicken-sized to the largest land predators ever known; sauropodomorphs, long-necked herbivores that would become the largest land animals in Earth's history; ornithischians, a diverse group including armored, horned, and duck-billed herbivores. By the early Jurassic, dinosaurs had become the dominant large animals on land. Their reign had begun, and it would last for over 130 million years, shaping ecosystems across the changing continents. The splitting of the supercontinent. As dinosaurs diversified, the Earth beneath them was transforming. Pangaea, the supercontinent that had existed for millions of years, began to fracture. The process started in the Jurassic, around 200 million years ago, driven by tectonic forces deep within the planet. Rifts opened in the crust, magma welled up, and the land began to separate. First, Pangaea split into two major landmasses, Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south, separated by the growing Tethys Sea. But the fragmentation continued. Gondwana itself would eventually break into South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. Laurasia split into North America, Europe, and Asia. This continental drift had profound effects on dinosaur evolution. As land masses separated, populations became isolated, evolving in different directions. Some dinosaur groups existed on all continents, suggesting they spread when land bridges still connected the fragmenting pieces. Others appear only in specific regions, having evolved after isolation. The changing geography also affected climate. As continents shifted, ocean currents changed, redistributing heat. Coastlines expanded as continents separated, moderating temperatures and increasing rainfall in formerly arid interiors. The dinosaurs evolved, not on a static stage, but on a planet in constant motion, adapting to changing landscapes, climates, and opportunities across their long reign. The changing climate of early Earth. Climate during the age of dinosaurs was dramatically different from today. There were no polar ice caps for most of the Mesozoic. Global temperatures were higher, and sea levels were elevated, flooding low-lying areas and creating shallow seas across the continents. The Triassic began hot and dry, but conditions changed as Pangaea fragmented. The Jurassic saw increased humidity as seaways expanded, bringing moisture to continental interiors. Forests spread where deserts had been. The climate wasn't uniform. There were still seasons, still variations between equator and poles, but the range was narrower than today's extremes. Even the poles were temperate, supporting forests rather than ice. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were higher, contributing to the warmth through greenhouse effects. This warm climate enabled the dinosaurs' success, particularly the giant sauropods, whose massive bodies required abundant plant growth to sustain them. The Cretaceous period saw the warmest conditions, with tropical temperatures reaching the Arctic Circle. Dinosaurs lived in these polar regions, though exactly how they survived the long winter darkness remains a topic of research. Some may have migrated, others might have hibernated, or simply endured. The climate shaped which dinosaurs thrived where, influencing body size, metabolism, and behavior. Understanding the ancient climate is crucial to understanding the dinosaurs themselves. They were creatures of their environment, adapted to a hothouse Earth. The evolution of the first giants. Early dinosaurs were relatively small, human-sized or smaller, but in the late Triassic and early Jurassic, a remarkable transformation occurred. Some herbivorous dinosaurs began growing larger, and larger, and larger still, eventually reaching sizes that stagger the imagination. This was the rise of the sauropods, the long-necked giants that would become the largest land animals ever to exist. The path to gigantism began with the prosauropods, early long-necked herbivores, like Plateosaurus, that reached lengths of up to 10 meters. They were experiments in size, testing the limits of the reptilian body plan. Their descendants, the true sauropods, perfected the design. Several factors enabled their extraordinary size. Their hollow bones, lightened by air sacs, reduced weight while maintaining strength. Their long necks allowed them to access food other herbivores couldn't reach, both high in trees and across wide swaths of ground, without moving their massive bodies. Their efficient respiratory systems, similar to modern birds with air sacs extending throughout the body, supplied oxygen even to their enormous frames. They were herbivores in a world of abundant plant life, able to consume vast quantities of vegetation. Perhaps most importantly, they laid eggs rather than giving live birth, avoiding the constraints that limit mammal size. A mammal must carry its young internally. A sauropod simply laid eggs and let them hatch, allowing the adults to grow without reproductive limits. The age of the sauropods. By the Middle Jurassic, sauropods had spread across the world, dominating herbivorous niches. They came in remarkable variety, despite their similar basic body plan. Some had incredibly long necks, stretching 15 meters or more. Others had relatively shorter necks, but massive, robust bodies. Some possessed whip-like tails that may have cracked like sonic booms as defensive weapons. Others had club tails. Their sizes were staggering. Diplodocus stretched over 30 meters long, but was relatively lightly built. Brachiosaurus stood tall, with front legs longer than back legs, holding its neck high. Argentinosaurus may have weighed 70 to 100 tons, challenging our understanding of biomechanics. How did such massive animals support their weight? Their columnar legs were positioned directly beneath their bodies, bearing weight efficiently, like architectural pillars. Their vertebrae were hollowed by air sacs, reducing skeletal weight by up to 40%. They likely grew rapidly, reaching enormous sizes quickly to escape predation. Living in herds, moving seasonally to find food, these giants shaped their environments. Their feeding must have dramatically affected vegetation, their movements creating pathways, their digestion recycling nutrients. They were ecosystem engineers, transforming landscapes simply by existing within them. The age of sauropods represents one of evolution's most spectacular experiments, proof that under the right conditions, life can achieve scales almost beyond belief. The long-necked titans of the plains. Imagine standing beside a fully grown brachiosaurus. Its shoulder would tower 5 meters above you, following the line of its body upward. Its neck extends impossibly high, the head browsing treetops, 12 meters above the ground, higher than a 3-story building. The neck alone contains 13 elongated vertebrae, each hollowed by air sacs, creating a structure that's strong yet light enough to be lifted and controlled. But such a neck posed challenges. How did the heart pump blood so high against gravity? Calculations suggest a multi-chambered heart, perhaps weighing several hundred kilograms, generating tremendous pressure, or possibly multiple hearts along the neck, though no evidence supports this. The brain was tiny compared to body size. A brachiosaurus skull might be only 60 centimeters long, the brain much smaller. Intelligence wasn't necessary for their lifestyle of constant eating, and eat they did, consuming perhaps 200 kilograms of vegetation daily, stripping leaves from conifers and tree ferns. Their teeth were peg-like or spoon-shaped, designed for raking and cropping rather than chewing. Food was swallowed whole, processed in a massive gut where bacteria fermented the plant matter, extracting nutrients over days. These weren't swift animals. Their size precluded speed, but they didn't need speed. Few predators could threaten a healthy adult. Their size itself was their defense, and the world accommodated these titans for millions of years. The towering Brachiosaurus. Brachiosaurus stands out even among sauropods for its unusual proportions. Unlike most sauropods, which had longer hind legs, Brachiosaurus had longer front legs, giving it a giraffe-like profile, with the body sloping downward toward the tail. This build allowed it to reach vegetation. Other sauropods couldn't, browsing at heights of up to 13 meters. Its nostrils were positioned high on its skull, once thought to indicate an aquatic lifestyle. The idea being, it could stand in deep water, with only its nostrils above the surface. This theory has been abandoned. The water pressure at such depths would have prevented breathing, and the fossils show no aquatic adaptations. The high nostrils more likely relate to heat regulation or enhanced sense of smell. Brachiosaurus lived during the late Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, in what is now North America and Africa, continents still connected at the time. It roamed floodplains and open woodlands, its great weight supported by elephant-like feet with thick pads. Each step must have made the ground tremble. A full-grown adult likely weighed 30 to 60 tons. Despite this mass, much of the body was air, those hollow bones and air sacs reducing density. The neck could probably move in graceful arcs, sweeping across treetops, the animal browsing without moving its feet, conserving energy while feeding constantly to fuel its enormous metabolism. The gentle giants that ate the forests. The sauropods were herbivores, their lives devoted to the consumption of plant matter. They needed vast quantities. Estimates suggest the largest species required a ton or more of vegetation daily. Their feeding strategies varied by species. Some, like Brachiosaurus, were high browsers, feeding on tall conifers and tree ferns. Others, like Diplodocus, may have been low browsers, or even grazers, despite the absence of grass, feeding instead on ferns and low-growing plants. Their teeth were tools for gathering, not processing. Food was cropped and swallowed whole, passing into a digestive system that relied on fermentation. Like modern cows, sauropods likely harbored vast populations of bacteria in their guts, microorganisms that could break down cellulose, the tough material in plant cell walls that most animals can't digest. This fermentation produced enormous amounts of gas. Some scientists have calculated that sauropods may have produced 500 million tons of methane annually during the Mesozoic, possibly affecting global climate. Their impact on vegetation must have been profound. A herd of sauropods passing through a forest would strip it nearly bare, toppling trees, crushing undergrowth, consuming vast quantities of greenery. But this wasn't necessarily destructive, like modern elephants. They likely promoted new growth, opened clearings, and dispersed seeds, shaping the forests even as they fed upon them. The power of the carnivores. Where there were herbivores, predators followed. The Mesozoic carnivores belonged primarily to the theropod dinosaurs, a group of bipedal hunters, ranging from tiny bird-sized creatures to the largest terrestrial predators Earth has known. Theropods shared common features: hollow bones, three-toed feet, hands with grasping fingers, and in many cases, a furcula, the wishbone inherited by modern birds. Early theropods were relatively small, swift hunters. Colophysis, from the late Triassic, was lightly built, perhaps 2 meters long, hunting in packs to bring down prey. As the Jurassic progressed, larger predators evolved. Allosaurus roamed North America and Europe, a 9-meter predator with powerful jaws and hand claws, used for grasping struggling prey. The Cretaceous saw the peak of theropod diversity. Spinosaurus, possibly the largest theropod, inhabited North Africa with a distinctive sail on its back and crocodile-like jaws, adapted for fishing. Giganotosaurus in South America may have rivaled Tyrannosaurus in size, and there were smaller, faster hunters, dromaeosaurs, like Velociraptor, built for speed and equipped with a killing claw on each foot. The theropods were adapted killers, their bodies refined over millions of years for hunting. But recent discoveries have revealed them as more complex than simple monsters. Many were likely intelligent, some showed evidence of pack hunting, and many, perhaps most, were covered in feathers. The fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex. No dinosaur captures imagination quite like Tyrannosaurus rex. It lived at the very end of the Cretaceous, about 68 to 66 million years ago, in what is now western North America. It was massive, up to 13 meters long, and weighing 8 tons, standing as tall as 6 meters at the hip. Its skull alone was 1.5 meters long, filled with teeth up to 30 centimeters in length, banana-sized serrated blades, designed not just to cut, but to crush bone. Unlike most predators, whose teeth are knife-like, T-Rex teeth were robust, capable of withstanding enormous forces. It could bite with a force estimated at 60,000 newtons, stronger than any other land animal. This allowed it to crush bone and access marrow, utilizing every part of its prey. Its tiny arms have been much mocked, but were actually quite powerful, each capable of lifting over 200 kilograms. They may have helped the animal rise from a resting position or held struggling prey. The legs were massive, muscular pillars, though despite popular depictions, T-Rex probably couldn't run fast. Its size limited it to perhaps 20 to 30 kilometers per hour at most. But it didn't need speed. Its prey weren't much faster, and evidence suggests T-Rex was an opportunistic feeder, both hunting and scavenging as opportunities arose. It was a supremely adapted predator, ruling its ecosystem with few challengers until the very end. The hunter's keen eyes and teeth. Tyrannosaurus rex wasn't just powerful, it was sophisticated. Recent studies of its skull reveal a predator with exceptional senses. Its eyes faced partially forward, providing binocular vision and depth perception, superior to most dinosaurs. This allowed it to judge distances accurately. Crucial for a predator, its visual acuity may have surpassed that of modern hawks. It could spot movement from kilometers away. Its sense of smell was extraordinary. The olfactory bulbs in its brain were enormous, suggesting it could detect scents across vast distances. This would aid in both hunting and locating carrion. Some scientists suggest T. rex was primarily a scavenger, its keen sense of smell helping it find dead animals. Others argue its predatory adaptations are too specialized for mere scavenging. The truth is likely both. Like modern big cats or bears, it probably hunted when opportunity arose and scavenged when possible. Why waste energy hunting if a meal already exists? Its teeth were continuously replaced throughout life. Each tooth socket could produce a new tooth every few years as old ones wore down or broke. The serrations on these teeth harbored bacteria, possibly making even non-fatal bites deadly through infection. Everything about Tyrannosaurus rex speaks to an animal refined by millions of years of evolution into an apex predator, perfectly adapted to its role in late Cretaceous ecosystems. The speed of the velociraptor. Popular culture has enlarged velociraptor in the public mind, but the reality is different and perhaps more fascinating. True velociraptor was about 2 meters long, much of that length being tail, and stood only about half a meter tall at the hip. It was turkey-sized, not the human-sized monsters of film, but it was no less formidable. Velociraptor belonged to the dromaeosaurs, or raptors, a family of theropods characterized by a distinctive sickle-shaped claw on each hind foot. This claw, up to 8 centimeters long, could be held off the ground while running, then deployed as a weapon, likely used to pin struggling prey or deliver slashing attacks. Its arms were long relative to its body, with 3 grasping fingers ending in sharp claws. Its jaws were lined with serrated teeth, 26 in the upper jaw, 28 in the lower. Recent discoveries have confirmed what scientists long suspected. Velociraptor was covered in feathers. While it couldn't fly, the feathers likely served for display, temperature regulation, and brooding eggs. Its skeleton suggests an active, agile hunter. The long, stiff tail acted as a counterbalance during quick turns and jumps. The large brain relative to body size suggests intelligence beyond most dinosaurs. Evidence from related species indicates possible pack hunting, coordinated attacks on prey larger than individual hunters. Velociraptor lived in the late Cretaceous, in what is now Mongolia, hunting in a desert environment, quite different from the jungle often depicted. The pack hunters of prehistoric times. The question of whether dinosaurs hunted in packs has fascinated paleontologists for decades. Evidence is circumstantial but suggestive. Trackways show multiple large theropods moving in the same direction, possibly together. Fossil sites preserve multiple individuals of the same predator species alongside large herbivore remains. Deinonychus, a larger relative of Velociraptor, appears in groups associated with Tenontosaurus fossils, large herbivores that would have been difficult for a single predator to kill. This suggests coordinated hunting. Modern pack hunters, like wolves, can bring down prey much larger than themselves through cooperation, and similar strategies might have allowed medium-sized theropods to hunt sauropods or large ornithischians. However, this remains debated. Crocodiles, close relatives of dinosaurs, sometimes feed in groups but don't hunt cooperatively. They simply gather at food sources. The same might be true for some theropods, aggregations at kills rather than coordinated hunts. Intelligence is key. Pack hunting requires communication, strategy, recognition of group members. Some theropods, particularly dromaeosaurs, had relatively large brains and may have possessed such capabilities. Others, with smaller brains, probably hunted alone. The truth likely varies by species. Some theropods may have been social hunters, others solitary. Some perhaps formed loose associations, while others were strict loners. The dinosaurs were diverse, and their hunting strategies probably were as well. The cleverness of theropods. Intelligence is difficult to measure in extinct animals, but skull structure provides clues. The ratio of brain size to body size, the encephalization quotient, offers rough estimates. Most dinosaurs had relatively small brains for their size, but theropods generally scored higher than other dinosaur groups. The most intelligent were likely the dromaeosaurs and troodontids. Troodon, a small theropod from the late Cretaceous, had one of the largest brain-to-body ratios of any dinosaur, suggesting cognitive abilities perhaps comparable to modern birds. Its large eyes indicate good vision, and its grasping hands suggest manipulative ability. What could dinosaurs do with their intelligence? They likely recognized individuals, important for social species. They may have used complex hunting strategies. Evidence suggests some built nests, incubated eggs, and cared for young behaviors requiring memory and planning. Some species may have used simple tools, though no definitive evidence exists. The intelligence of theropods shouldn't be overstated. They weren't solving puzzles or using language, but neither were they mindless automatons. They were sophisticated animals, navigating complex environments, finding food, avoiding danger, reproducing successfully across millions of years. Their descendants, the birds, demonstrate remarkable cognitive abilities. Crows use tools, parrots communicate with surprising complexity, and pigeons navigate using mental maps. These abilities didn't appear from nothing. They have roots reaching back through evolutionary time to the clever theropods of the Mesozoic. The armor of the ankylosaurs. Not all dinosaurs relied on size, speed, or teeth for protection. Some developed armor, bony plates embedded in skin, turning their bodies into living fortresses. The ankylosaurs were the most heavily armored dinosaurs, tanks in the Cretaceous landscape. Their backs were covered in osteoderms, bony plates that grew within the skin, forming a flexible but protective shield. These weren't just simple plates. They came in various forms, some flat and interlocking like tiles, others with spikes projecting outward, still others keeled like little roofs. The arrangement varied by species, but covered the back, sides, and even parts of the skull. The belly remained unarmored and vulnerable. An ankylosaur's strategy was to hunker down when threatened, presenting only armored surfaces to predators. Their limbs were short and powerful, built for strength rather than speed. The skull was massive and heavily reinforced, with complex nasal passages. Some species had bony eyelids for additional protection, but the ankylosaur's most distinctive feature was the tail club, a bony mass at the tail's end formed from fused vertebrae, covered in osteoderms. The tail's final half was stiffened by ossified tendons, allowing it to swing as a rigid lever. Muscles at the base provided power. The club could be swung with considerable force, potentially breaking the leg bones of attacking predators. This was defensive weaponry, refined over millions of years. The club-tailed defenders. Imagine a predator approaching an ankylosaur, perhaps an Ankylosaurus magniventris, one of the largest species, about 6 meters long and weighing 5 to 6 tons. The ankylosaur is browsing low-growing plants, its body low to the ground, armored back presented to the world. The predator, perhaps a young tyrannosaur, circles, looking for an opening. The ankylosaur tracks it, with eyes set on the sides of its armored head, maintaining visual contact. As the predator lunges, the ankylosaur pivots with surprising speed for such a massive animal, swinging its tail in a wide arc. The tail club, weighing perhaps 50 kilograms, accelerates to significant speed. The impact could deliver over 4,000 newtons of force, enough to shatter bone. A solid hit to a predator's leg could cripple it, a death sentence for a hunter that depends on mobility. This deterrent was effective. Predators likely learned to avoid healthy adult ankylosaurs, targeting juveniles or sick individuals instead. The tail club wasn't just defensive. Males may have used them in contests with other males, battling for mates or territory without lethal intent. The club's structure shows it could withstand repeated impacts, suggesting it was used regularly. The ankylosaurs thrived until the end of the Cretaceous, their armor proving an effective evolutionary strategy, demonstrating that in the arms race between predator and prey, defense can be as successful as offense. The spikes of the Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus is among the most recognizable dinosaurs, famous for the plates running along its back and the spikes at its tail's end. It lived during the late Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, in what is now western North America. An adult reached about 9 meters in length and weighed around 5 tons. Despite its size, its brain was famously small, walnut-sized, leading to outdated ideas about dinosaur stupidity. Brain size alone is misleading, but Stegosaurus was probably not particularly intelligent, even by dinosaur standards. Its head was small and narrow, with a beak-like mouth for cropping vegetation, and small teeth for minimal processing. It was a low-browsing herbivore, likely feeding on ferns, cycads, and other ground-level plants. The most distinctive features were the plates and spikes. The plates arranged in 2 staggered rows along the neck, back, and upper tail. Though their exact configuration has been debated, these weren't solid bone, but were heavily vascularized, containing blood vessels that suggest a role in thermoregulation. By pumping blood through the plates, Stegosaurus could dump heat on hot days or absorb warmth when cold. They may also have served display functions, turning broadside to show off the plates to rivals or potential mates. The tail spikes, called the thagomizer, were defensive weapons, arranged in 2 pairs at the tail's end. Each spike could be 30 centimeters long, or more, sharp and capable of inflicting serious wounds on predators. The plates that caught the sun. The plates of Stegosaurus have puzzled scientists since the first fossils were discovered. Were they for defense, display, temperature regulation? The answer seems to be multiple functions. The plates were covered in keratin in life, the same material as your fingernails, forming a protective sheath over the bone. They were arranged alternately, rather than in matched pairs, creating a dramatic profile when viewed from the side. Histological studies, examining the internal bone structure, reveal extensive blood vessel channels throughout the plates. This vascular network suggests thermoregulation as a primary function. Computer modeling indicates that by orienting its body to catch the sun, Stegosaurus could warm its blood through the plates, then circulate that warmth through its body. Conversely, in wind, heat would radiate away through the plates, cooling the animal. This was important for a large animal in fluctuating temperatures, but the plates also served display. They made Stegosaurus look larger, more intimidating to predators. They may have flushed with color when blood flow increased, creating visual displays for communication. Different species had differently shaped plates, some tall and pointed, others broad and rounded, suggesting species recognition and sexual selection played roles. The plates represent evolution, finding multiple uses for a single structure, a common theme in natural history, where features developed for one purpose are co-opted for others, creating complex forms with layered functions. The Triceratops and its horned shield. Triceratops is perhaps the most iconic horned dinosaur, instantly recognizable with its 3 facial horns and massive bony frill extending from the skull. It lived at the very end of the Cretaceous, contemporary with Tyrannosaurus rex, in the same North American ecosystem. Adults reached 9 meters in length and could weigh over 6 tons. The skull alone measured over 2 meters long, one of the largest skulls of any land animal ever. The frill wasn't just for show. While it did extend the apparent size and probably played roles in display and species recognition. It also protected the neck and anchored powerful jaw muscles. The horns were formidable weapons. Two brow horns projected forward above the eyes, growing up to 1 meter in length. A shorter nasal horn sat on the snout. These were solid bone covered in keratin sheaths. Sharp and strong, evidence suggests they were used in combat. Triceratops skulls show healed puncture wounds, matching the size and spacing of horns, indicating these animals fought each other, whether competing for mates, territory, or dominance within herds. Triceratops used its horns against its own kind. Against predators, a charging Triceratops would have been deadly. Several tons of muscle and bone behind meter-long horns could gore even the largest predator. Tyrannosaurus fossils show injuries consistent with Triceratops horn wounds. The relationship between these two giants, predator and prey, dominated late Cretaceous North America. The battles of herbivores and predators. The Mesozoic landscape was a stage for constant drama. The ancient dance between predator and prey, playing out across millions of years. Fossil evidence occasionally preserves moments from this struggle. The famous fighting dinosaurs fossil from Mongolia shows a velociraptor locked in combat with Protoceratops, preserved mid-battle when a sand dune collapsed on them. The raptor's killing claw is embedded in the throat of the Protoceratops, which in turn has bitten and trapped the raptor's arm in its beak. Both died in that moment, frozen together. Other fossils show bite marks, healed injuries, pathologies caused by combat or predation. Tyrannosaur bones bear tooth marks from other tyrannosaurs, evidence of cannibalism or scavenging. Edmontosaurus vertebrae show Tyrannosaurus bite marks that healed, indicating the prey survived the attack, at least temporarily. Tyrannosaurus bones show Deinonychus teeth embedded in them. Allosaurus bones show injuries consistent with Stegosaurus tail spikes. The fossil record is incomplete, preserving only a tiny fraction of the deaths that occurred. But what it shows is clear. These animals lived violently. Herbivores evolved ever more sophisticated defenses: armor, horns, tail weapons, size, speed, herding behavior. Predators countered with greater size, stronger jaws, sharper teeth, pack hunting. The evolutionary arms race drove innovation on both sides, each adaptation by prey selecting for counter-adaptations in predators, and vice versa, creating the spectacular diversity the Mesozoic is known for. The sound of a prehistoric world. We see dinosaurs in museums and films, but what did they sound like? The soundscape of the Mesozoic is lost to time. Sound doesn't fossilize, but we can make educated guesses based on anatomy and modern relatives. Many dinosaurs likely made vocalizations. Hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, possessed elaborate crests with hollow passages connecting to their nasal cavities. These likely functioned as resonating chambers. By blowing air through them, hadrosaurs could produce sounds, probably low-frequency calls that carried long distances. Different species had differently shaped crests, likely producing distinctive calls for species recognition. Parasaurolophus, with its long backward curving crest, might have produced sounds like a trombone, deep, resonant, haunting tones echoing across Cretaceous floodplains. Computer modeling of crest structures suggests frequencies below 100 Hz, at the low end of human hearing. Large theropods may have produced deep rumbles from their chests, similar to cassowaries, modern flightless birds that produce booming sounds through inflatable neck sacs. Smaller theropods might have chirped or squawked, bird-like calls that their feathered bodies would suggest. Some dinosaurs likely used non-vocal sounds. Tail clubs and spikes could have been rattled or drummed against the ground. Footsteps of sauropods would have been thunderous, the ground shaking with each step. During mating season, the Mesozoic world was probably very noisy indeed. Calls echoing through forests, rivals bellowing challenges, herds communicating across distances. The silence we imagine when we picture prehistoric scenes is false. The ancient world was filled with sound, a symphony of life we can only imagine, guided by the traces left in bone and the voices of living descendants. The calls and roars of dinosaurs. Think about the roar of Tyrannosaurus rex in films, that bone-shaking bellow that announces its presence. But could dinosaurs actually roar? Roaring requires specific vocal anatomy, laryngeal structures, that create sound through vibrating air across vocal cords or membranes. Modern crocodilians, the closest living relatives of dinosaurs besides birds, can produce loud bellows and hisses, but don't roar in the mammalian sense. Birds, the living dinosaurs, produce sounds through a different structure called a syrinx, located lower in the respiratory system than the mammalian larynx. The syrinx allows complex vocalizations, but produces sounds quite different from mammalian roars. Did dinosaurs have syrinxes? No fossil evidence exists. Soft tissue rarely preserves. They may have had entirely different vocal structures, or relied on non-vocal sound production. Closed-mouth vocalizations are common in birds, deep booming sounds produced by inflating throat or chest sacs. Large theropods might have produced similar sounds. Low-frequency rumbles felt as much as heard. The popular image of roaring dinosaurs likely owes more to drama than biology. The real sounds were probably stranger, more alien, a mix of hisses, booms, bellows, and calls, unlike anything in our modern experience. To walk through a Mesozoic landscape would be to hear sounds that no longer exist, voices of species long extinct. A soundscape as vanished as the animals themselves. The feathers hidden in stone. For over a century after their discovery, dinosaurs were depicted as scaly reptiles, cold-blooded, sluggish, lizard-like. This image persisted until the late 20th century, when revolutionary discoveries began changing everything. In the mid-1990s, paleontologists working in China's Liaoning province discovered something extraordinary: dinosaur fossils with feathers preserved. These weren't birds, but clearly dinosaurs, theropods with teeth and tails, yet covered in filament-like structures, unmistakably feather-like. Sinosauropteryx was among the first, a small compsognathid covered in simple, hair-like proto-feathers. More discoveries followed rapidly. Caudipteryx had more complex feathers with veins. Microraptor possessed full flight feathers on all four limbs. These weren't isolated cases. Feathers appeared widespread among theropods. Even tyrannosaurs showed evidence of feathery coverings, at least when young. The discoveries transformed our understanding. Feathers didn't evolve for flight. They appeared first in flightless dinosaurs, likely for insulation or display. Flight came later, co-opting existing structures for a new purpose. The implications were profound. These weren't slow, cold-blooded reptiles, but likely warm-blooded, active animals. The line between dinosaurs and birds blurred. Birds didn't descend from dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, the only lineage to survive the extinction. Every sparrow, every eagle, every hummingbird is a living dinosaur, carrying forward a lineage over 200 million years old. The link between birds and dinosaurs. The connection between birds and dinosaurs isn't new speculation. It dates to the 1860s, when Archaeopteryx was discovered in Germany. This late Jurassic creature was clearly transitional, with feathers and wings like a bird, teeth, clawed fingers, and a long bony tail like a dinosaur. Thomas Huxley, Darwin's champion, proposed birds evolved from dinosaurs, but the idea lost favor in the early 20th century. It revived in the 1960s when paleontologist John Ostrom studied Deinonychus and recognized its bird-like features: hollow bones, furcula, grasping hands, active predatory lifestyle. He argued dinosaurs weren't sluggish reptiles, but active, possibly warm-blooded animals ancestral to birds. The hypothesis gained support through cladistic analysis, detailed comparison of anatomical features, showing birds nested within theropod dinosaurs as a specialized branch. The Chinese feathered dinosaur discoveries sealed the case. The evidence is now overwhelming. Birds are theropod dinosaurs, specifically nested within the Maniraptoran group, alongside dromaeosaurs and troodontids. They share over 100 anatomical features found nowhere else. The skeletal similarities are so close that some fossils have been misidentified, classified as birds when they were flightless dinosaurs, or vice versa. Understanding this relationship transforms how we view both groups. Birds aren't merely descended from dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, the specialized flying members of a lineage that once dominated Earth. When you watch a bird, you're watching a living link to the Mesozoic, a creature whose ancestors survived catastrophe and continued evolving while their relatives perished. The discovery of feathered fossils, the Liaoning province in northeastern China, is a treasure trove of exceptional fossils. During the early Cretaceous, about 125 million years ago, the region contained lakes surrounded by volcanic activity. When animals died and sank into the lake bottoms, fine volcanic ash fell from eruptions, quickly burying them in oxygen-poor conditions. This rapid burial and fine sediment preserved incredible detail, not just bones, but soft tissues, skin, feathers, even stomach contents, and color patterns. The fossils from Liaoning revolutionized paleontology. Sinosauropteryx showed simple filament-like feathers and preserved pigment patterns, revealing it had a striped tail. Microraptor Gui was covered in iridescent black feathers, like a crow. Anchiornis had patterns, suggesting white and black, with rufous red on its head. Confuciusornis, an early bird, showed gender differences: males with long tail feathers, females without. Pusitaccosaurus, an early horned dinosaur, not closely related to birds, had bristle-like structures on its tail, suggesting feather-like structures might have been even more widespread than thought. These discoveries came rapid fire through the late 1990s and 2000s, each revealing more about dinosaur appearance, behavior, and evolution. The preservation is so exquisite that scientists can study feather structure under microscopes, identifying melanosomes, pigment-containing structures that reveal color patterns. We now know dinosaurs weren't uniform brown or gray, but likely displayed vibrant colors, patterns for camouflage, communication, and display, as varied and brilliant as modern birds. The mystery of color in ancient skin. For decades, dinosaur color was pure speculation. Artists made choices based on aesthetics or modern animal analogies, but no one really knew. That changed with the discovery of melanosomes, microscopic structures within cells that contain pigment. Different melanosome shapes produce different colors. Elongated melanosomes create black and gray. Rounded ones produce reddish browns. The absence of melanosomes suggests white or pale colors. These structures can fossilize when preservation conditions are right, pressed flat, but still identifiable under electron microscopes. By examining fossilized feathers and comparing melanosome shapes to those in modern birds, scientists can reconstruct colors. Sinosauropteryx was ginger-colored with white stripes on its tail. Microraptor was glossy black with iridescent sheen. Anchiornis was black and white with a red crest. Borealopelta, an armored dinosaur, showed countershading, darker on top, lighter below, a camouflage pattern suggesting it needed to hide despite its armor. Not all colors preserve. Bright yellows, blues, and greens come from different pigments or structural colors that don't fossilize well, so our reconstructions are incomplete. But we're no longer completely guessing. Some dinosaurs are known colors now, proven through fossil evidence. The image of dinosaurs continues evolving as new discoveries reveal more. They were creatures of color and pattern, displaying themselves to each other. The scales, feathers, and patterns of life. Not all dinosaurs were feathered. Skin impressions from many species show scales, reptilian covering, similar to modern lizards and crocodiles. Large dinosaurs like sauropods and many ornithischians appear to have been predominantly scaled, perhaps with limited feathering in certain areas. This makes sense. Larger animals have less surface area relative to volume and struggle with overheating rather than staying warm. Feathers provide insulation, but can trap heat, potentially dangerous for massive dinosaurs. Small dinosaurs needed insulation. Feathers kept them warm. Large dinosaurs needed cooling. Scales allowed heat dissipation. Medium-sized dinosaurs might have had mixed coverings, feathers in some areas, scales in others, varying by species, climate, and season. Even within feathered species, variation existed. Display feathers on heads, tails, or arms might be elaborate, while body feathers remain simple. Juveniles might be more extensively feathered than adults, needing more insulation when small. The patterns were likely complex. Stripes, spots, countershading, bright display patches on otherwise drab backgrounds. Sexual dimorphism probably meant males and females of the same species looked different. As with many modern birds, the Mesozoic landscape was visually rich. Creatures in varied garb, each species distinct, each individual potentially unique. The gray uniformity, often depicted in older reconstructions, was fiction. Reality was vibrant, diverse, a world of color and pattern, as complex as the ecosystems that supported it. The dinosaurs of the sea. While dinosaurs dominated land, they never returned to the sea, but other reptiles did, evolving into spectacular marine forms that ruled Mesozoic oceans. These weren't dinosaurs, but contemporaries, reptiles that adapted to aquatic life, while dinosaurs adapted to terrestrial niches. The ichthyosaurs appeared in the early Triassic and resembled dolphins, a remarkable case of convergent evolution, where unrelated animals in similar environments developed similar body forms. They had streamlined bodies, dorsal fins and tail flukes, perfectly adapted for fast swimming. Some reached lengths of over 15 meters. They gave live birth in the water, never needing to return to land. The plesiosaurs were different, with barrel-shaped bodies, 4 flippers, and often extremely long necks. Some, like Elasmosaurus, had necks containing over 70 vertebrae, reaching over 7 meters long. They moved by flying through water, using flipper motions like sea turtles. The pliosaurs, related to pliosaurs, had shorter necks but massive heads. Some skulls reached 3 meters long, with jaws filled with conical teeth. They were apex predators, hunting large fish, squid, and other marine reptiles. Mosasaurs appeared later, in the Cretaceous, and were most closely related to modern monitor lizards. They had long, streamlined bodies, powerful tails for propulsion, and double-hinged jaws, allowing them to swallow large prey. Some exceeded 15 meters in length. These marine reptiles weren't dinosaurs, but they shared the Mesozoic seas, creating complex oceanic ecosystems as rich and varied as those on land. The plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs. Imagine diving beneath Jurassic waves. Sunlight filters down through blue water, illuminating a world strange and wonderful. In the distance, a shape moves, long, impossibly long, a neck serpentine and graceful, attached to a compact body with 4 diamond-shaped flippers. This is a plesiosaur, perhaps Cryptoclydus, hunting fish in the shallow seas covering much of Europe. The neck moves in fluid curves, the small head darting quickly to snatch prey. Despite the long neck, the skull is relatively small. These weren't creatures designed to fight large prey, but to capture fish and squid with precision and reach. How they use such long necks has been debated. Some scientists suggest they hunted by stealth, the small head less frightening to prey than a large predator. Others propose they fed on bottom-dwelling creatures, the neck allowing them to probe the seafloor. Suddenly, a faster shape cuts through the water. An ichthyosaur, Ophthalmosaurus, torpedo-shaped, with enormous eyes adapted for deep diving. It's chasing squid, its streamlined form built for speed. These reptiles breathed air like their terrestrial ancestors, but were fully aquatic, never coming to land except occasionally to bask. They occupied niches similar to modern whales and dolphins, top predators and efficient swimmers. Their fossils are found worldwide, evidence of successful designs that persisted for over 150 million years before vanishing in the same extinction that claimed the dinosaurs. The swift hunters beneath the waves. The Mesozoic oceans were hunting grounds for specialized predators. Ichthyosaurs were perhaps the most fish-like of marine reptiles. Their bodies adapted for sustained high-speed swimming. Their tails had vertical flukes, like fish, rather than horizontal flukes like whales, though they evolved these structures independently. Another example of convergent evolution. The largest ichthyosaurs appeared in the Triassic. Shonosaurus reached over 20 meters long, comparable to modern sperm whales. Later forms were generally smaller, but faster. Ophthalmosaurus had the largest eyes relative to body size of any vertebrate, each eye up to 23 centimeters in diameter. These enormous eyes suggest deep diving, where every bit of light captured is crucial. Fossils preserve females with embryos inside, confirming they gave live birth in water. Some specimens show multiple embryos, suggesting they birthed several young at once. At least one fossil captures a female in the act of giving birth when she died. Other hunters took different approaches. Lipleurodon, a short-necked plesiosaur, or plesiosaur, was built like an orca, powerful, with massive jaws and conical teeth, designed for gripping struggling prey. Estimates of its size have varied wildly, from 7 to 25 meters, though more conservative estimates suggest around 6 to 7 meters. Even at smaller estimates, it was formidable. The diversity of marine reptiles paralleled that of dinosaurs on land, each group exploring different ways to make a living in their respective environments. The flying reptiles of the sky. While dinosaurs walked the earth, their distant cousins, the pterosaurs, commanded the skies. These were not dinosaurs, but a separate lineage of archosaurs, the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight. They appeared in the late Triassic, about 228 million years ago, and persisted until the end Cretaceous extinction. Early pterosaurs were small, sparrow to crow-sized, with long tails for stability. Later forms lost the tail, becoming more maneuverable. The largest pterosaurs were the biggest flying animals ever. Quetzalcoatlus had a wingspan of over 10 meters, as large as a small airplane, yet weighed only around 200 kilograms due to hollow bones and air sacs. Presaurs flew using membranes of skin stretched between elongated fourth fingers in their bodies, quite different from bird wings. This wing structure allowed different aerodynamics. Presaurs were likely soaring specialists, using updrafts and thermals to stay aloft with minimal energy expenditure. Many had crests on their skulls, likely for display and species recognition. Some had teeth for catching fish. Others were toothless with specialized beaks. Fossil evidence shows they were covered in fiber-like structures called pycnofibers, similar to hair or primitive feathers, suggesting they were warm-blooded. Trackways show they walked on all fours, when grounded, folding their wings and using them as additional limbs. They occupied ecological niches, similar to modern seabirds, bats, and raptors, filling the skies throughout the Mesozoic. The grace of the pterosaurs. Picture Pteranodon gliding above Cretaceous seas, its 7-meter wingspan catching wind currents. Its head is adorned with a long, backward-pointing crest, possibly used as a rudder during flight or for sexual display. It soars effortlessly, barely flapping, eyes scanning the water below for fish. When prey is spotted, it dives, skimming the surface and scooping fish with its long, toothless beak. Pteranodon was perfectly adapted for this lifestyle. Light bones, specialized flight membranes, streamlined body. Its wing loading, the ratio of body weight to wing area, was low, allowing efficient gliding. Computer modeling suggests it could fly at speeds over 40 kilometers per hour and might have traveled hundreds of kilometers while foraging. Other pterosaurs filled different niches. Dimorphodon, an early form, had a large head and short wings, likely flying among trees and forests. Pterodactylus was small and agile, perhaps catching insects on the wing. Disungaripterus had unusual upturned jaws, possibly adapted for prying shellfish from rocks. The diversity matched that of modern birds. Each species specialized for particular foods and habitats. Despite their success, pterosaurs vanished completely at the end of the Cretaceous. Unlike dinosaurs, which survived as birds, pterosaurs left no descendants. Their lineage ended entirely. Their mastery of flight terminated after 160 million years. The skies were left to birds, which diversified rapidly to fill the vacant niches. The wings that crossed ancient oceans. Some pterosaurs were intercontinental travelers. Fossil evidence suggests certain species ranged across vast distances, perhaps migrating seasonally, or simply roaming widely in search of food. Pteranodon fossils appear along both sides of the western interior seaway that divided North America during the Cretaceous, suggesting they flew freely across this inland sea. And Hungera fossils are found in both South America and Africa, continents that were separated by the growing Atlantic Ocean by the early Cretaceous. Though the gap was narrower than today, did these pterosaurs regularly cross ocean barriers? Or do the fossil distributions reflect earlier times when land masses were connected? Some pterosaurs were certainly capable of long-distance flight. Their light construction, efficient gliding capabilities, and adaptations for soaring suggest they could remain airborne for extended periods. Modern albatrosses, which have similar gliding adaptations, can fly thousands of kilometers without landing. Large pterosaurs likely had comparable capabilities. They may have roosted on coastal cliffs or rocky islands, venturing far out to sea to feed on fish and squid, returning periodically to land to rest and breed. The largest pterosaurs might have been almost exclusively aerial, too awkward on land to move easily, spending most of their lives aloft. Their world was the sky, the ocean below merely a hunting ground, land a temporary necessity for reproduction. They mastered three-dimensional space in ways humans can only imagine. The world of the Jurassic period. The Jurassic period, from 201 to 145 million years ago, was the golden age of dinosaurs. The climate was warm and humid, sea levels high, flooding lowlands, and creating shallow seas across the continents. Pangaea continued fragmenting, creating new coastlines and moderating temperatures. The world was green. Plants flourished in the warm, wet conditions. Conifers dominated, forming vast forests of araucarians, relatives of modern monkey puzzle trees. Ginkgos, cycads, and tree ferns filled the understory. Ferns carpeted the ground in dense layers. There were no flowering plants yet. Those would appear in the Cretaceous, but the plant diversity was remarkable. This abundant vegetation supported enormous herbivore populations. Sauropods reached their peak diversity and size during the Jurassic. Herds of long-necked giants browsed forests, their impact on vegetation shaping entire ecosystems. Where they fed, they opened clearings, allowing light to reach the forest floor and promoting new growth. Their dung fertilized the soil. Their movements created pathways. They were ecosystem engineers on a scale unmatched before or since. Predators followed the herds. Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Torvosaurus, large theropods hunting the juveniles, and weak, smaller carnivores hunted lizards, early mammals, and each other. In the seas, ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs ruled. In the skies, pterosaurs soared. The Jurassic was a world alive with diversity, dinosaurs having fully claimed their dominance. The lush forests of ferns and cycads. Walk through a Jurassic forest, and you'd find it familiar yet alien. Trees tower overhead, massive conifers with thick bark and needle-like leaves, casting deep shade. The understory is thick with cycads, palm-like plants with tough fronds radiating from stumpy trunks. These aren't true palms. Those wouldn't evolve until much later. But they create similar impressions. Tree ferns add to the layered canopy, their delicate fronds contrasting with the coarser cycad leaves. The ground is carpeted in ferns of countless varieties, from tiny creeping species to large forms, with fronds over a meter long. Everything is green, lush, humid. The air smells of decay and growth mixed together, rotting vegetation, feeding new life. There are no flowers. Those explosive colors and sweet scents don't exist yet. Instead, plants reproduce through spores and seeds, more primitive methods, but successful in this environment. Pollination is by wind, or, for some cycads, by primitive beetles. The relationships between plants and insects were simpler than today's complex coevolutions, but were already established. The forests were productive, generating enormous amounts of plant matter that supported the herbivores, which in turn supported carnivores. Dead plant material accumulated in swamps, creating the coal deposits we mine today. The Jurassic forests were the foundation of the food webs, the primary producers whose energy flowed through every creature in the ecosystem. The insects and small creatures of the past. The Mesozoic world wasn't only giants. Among the roots and fallen logs, beneath the ferns and in the canopy, countless small creatures lived their lives. Insects were diverse and abundant. Cockroaches, which had existed since the Carboniferous, scuttled through leaf litter. Dragonflies patrolled waterways, some species with wingspans over 15 centimeters. Beetles diversified through the Jurassic and Cretaceous, eventually becoming the most diverse insect order. Ants and bees would appear in the Cretaceous, along with flowering plants, but wasps already existed, and primitive flies buzzed through the air. Spiders spun webs. Then as now, ambush predators waiting for prey to blunder into their snares. Millipedes and centipedes processed dead plant matter and hunted smaller prey. In the soil, vast communities of decomposers, bacteria, fungi, tiny arthropods, broke down organic matter and recycled nutrients. Early mammals were present, but small and mostly nocturnal, hiding from dinosaurs that dominated the day. They were shrew-like or rat-like creatures, eating insects, seeds, and whatever else they could find. Some were arboreal, living in trees. Others burrowed. A few even swam. They were diverse in habit, if not in size, persisting in the shadow of dinosaurs, waiting for their opportunity. Lizards darted through the undergrowth. Early snakes appeared in the Cretaceous. Frogs and salamanders inhabited wetlands. The small creatures were the majority, the foundation of ecosystems. Even if the giants drew all attention, the early mammals that lived in shadows. Mammals existed throughout the age of dinosaurs, but remained small and mostly inconspicuous. They evolved from synapsids. In the late Triassic, roughly the same time dinosaurs appeared. But while dinosaurs diversified and grew large, mammals stayed small, most no bigger than rats, few larger than cats. This wasn't failure, but adaptation. By remaining small and mostly nocturnal, they avoided competing directly with dinosaurs. The night was their domain. While dinosaurs slept, mammals foraged, hunting insects and eating seeds. Their small size was advantageous. Small animals need less food, can hide more easily, reproduce faster. Their nocturnal habits drove evolution of enhanced senses, keen hearing, sensitive whiskers, excellent sense of smell. Many early mammals likely had poor color vision. Their eyes adapted for low light rather than color discrimination. They developed fur for insulation, important for maintaining body temperature in the cool nights. They evolved diverse forms within their size constraints. Some were gliders, leaping between trees with skin membranes stretched between limbs. Some were swimmers, hunting fish and invertebrates in streams. Some were burrowers, digging extensive tunnel systems. Some, like Repenimus, were large enough to prey on small dinosaurs. Fossils preserve one with a juvenile Psittacosaurus in its stomach, but these were exceptions. Most mammals remain small, waiting in the shadows, their time not yet come. When the dinosaurs fell, the mammals would inherit the earth, but for over 100 million years, they lived as subordinates in a dinosaur world. The great diversity of dinosaur species. Over 1,000 dinosaur species have been named, though many are based on incomplete fossils or are probably synonyms of other species. The true number of species that existed is unknowable, but certainly far higher. Perhaps thousands or tens of thousands. Across their 170 million year reign, each environment, each continent, each time period had its own assemblages of species, ecosystems as diverse as modern ones. The Morrison Formation in the western United States preserves late Jurassic fauna: Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, Ceratosaurus, and many more, all coexisting. The Yixian Formation in China preserves early Cretaceous forests, with dozens of feathered dinosaur species, early birds, mammals, and pterosaurs. The Hell Creek Formation in North America captures the final chapter: Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and Ankylosaurus, and others living in the last million years before extinction. Each formation reveals a snapshot of time, a moment in the long story. But these are just glimpses. Most dinosaur species left no fossils we've found. Most environments and time periods remain poorly sampled. Every year, new species are discovered and named. The rate of discovery has accelerated as more paleontologists work in previously unexplored regions. China, Argentina, and Mongolia have been particularly productive recently. The diversity of dinosaurs rivals or exceeds modern mammal diversity, encompassing every size from crow to whale, every diet from strict herbivore to apex carnivore, every habitat from desert to swamp to polar forest. The continents in constant motion. Throughout the Mesozoic, the continents continued their slow dance, driven by tectonic forces. By the late Jurassic, the Atlantic Ocean was opening, separating the Americas from Europe and Africa. South America and Africa remained connected, but were beginning to rift. India was an island continent, drifting northward toward Asia at several centimeters per year, fast in geological terms. Australia was still attached to Antarctica, both much farther north than today, and covered in temperate forests. The geography affected dinosaur distribution. Some groups appear worldwide. Sauropods are found on every continent, suggesting they dispersed before the continents fully separated. Others show restricted distributions. Certain theropods appear only in South America and Africa, evidence these continents were connected longer than others. Some herbivores are found only in Asia, others only in North America. As continents separated, dinosaurs on isolated landmasses evolved in different directions, creating endemic species found nowhere else. When land bridges occasionally formed, temporary connections during sea level drops or through island chains, species could disperse, mixing previously isolated faunas. The complex pattern of dinosaur distribution reflects this shifting geography. Paleontologists use dinosaur fossils to test theories about ancient continent positions, employing fossils as data points in reconstructing plate tectonic history. The dinosaurs and the continents co-evolved, each shaping the other's story. The evolution of new life forms. Evolution during the Mesozoic was constant. Species appeared, spread, diversified, and went extinct in the normal churn of natural selection and changing environments. The dinosaurs we know are just snapshots from this process, individual frames from a long film. Lineages evolved over millions of years. Early theropods were small and generalized. Over time, they diversified. Some became larger, some remained small, Some developed specialized features. The tyrannosaurs began as dog-sized predators in the Jurassic, gradually increasing in size until the late Cretaceous giants appeared. Sauropods experimented with different body plans, neck length, tail structure, overall size, producing the variety we see in fossils. Each innovation was tested against environment and competition. Successful designs spread and diversified. Failed experiments left few fossils. The horned dinosaurs, ceratopsians, appeared in the Jurassic as small bipedal herbivores. By the Cretaceous, they'd evolved into quadrupedal forms with elaborate frills and horns, diversifying into dozens of species in North America and Asia. The duck-billed hadrosaurs evolved complex dental batteries, rows of tightly packed teeth that created efficient grinding surfaces, allowing them to process tough plant material and diversify rapidly in the Cretaceous. Each evolutionary innovation opened new possibilities. Feathers allowed better insulation, then display, eventually flight. Armor provided defense, allowing herbivores to inhabit areas with high predator density. The Mesozoic was evolution's grand experiment, testing variations on the reptilian theme across deep time. The climate that shaped their world. Climate was never static during the dinosaur age. The Triassic began hot and dry, then became more moderate as Pangaea fragmented and coastlines expanded. The Jurassic was warm and humid globally, with no ice caps and high sea levels creating extensive shallow seas. The Cretaceous saw the warmest conditions, with atmospheric carbon dioxide levels several times higher than today, driving greenhouse warming. Polar temperatures during the Cretaceous were perhaps 15 to 20 degrees Celsius warmer than present, allowing forests to grow where today there's only tundra or ice. Dinosaurs inhabited these polar forests, living through months-long darkness in winter, a challenge we're still understanding how they solved. But climate varied regionally. While global averages were warm, local conditions differed. Coastal areas were humid with moderate temperatures. Continental interiors could be hot and dry, creating deserts or seasonal drought. Mountains created rain shadows, wet on one side, dry on the other. Volcanic eruptions temporarily cooled climate by injecting sulfur into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight. The climate varied on multiple timescales, daily and seasonal cycles, longer-term shifts driven by orbital variations, multi-million-year trends from tectonic changes affecting ocean circulation. Dinosaurs evolved within this changing climate, adapting to conditions that sometimes shifted faster than they could keep pace with, facing challenges that tested their adaptability across their long reign. The dry deserts and tropical swamps. The Mesozoic landscape included every environment found today, except grasslands and polar ice. Deserts stretched across continental interiors. The Morrison Formation of North America preserves evidence of seasonal aridity, river channels that flowed only during wet seasons. Dinosaurs inhabiting these regions needed adaptations for water conservation and heat tolerance. Some may have estivated during the driest periods, burying themselves and entering dormancy like modern lungfish. At the other extreme were swamps and wetlands, flooded forests where water pooled in low-lying areas. These were incredibly productive environments, supporting dense vegetation and consequently dense dinosaur populations. Hadrosaurs thrived in these wetlands, feeding on aquatic plants and soft vegetation. Their fossils are often found in ancient floodplain deposits. Coastal swamps created ideal conditions for fossilization. Animals dying in water were quickly buried by sediment, their preservation enhanced. Many of our best dinosaur fossils come from these ancient wetlands. Between these extremes were temperate forests, tropical rainforests, woodlands, and shrublands, diverse environments supporting diverse species. The variety meant dinosaurs couldn't be generalists. They specialized. Each species adapted to its particular environment. A dinosaur from coastal swamps would struggle in inland deserts. Evolution filled each niche with species fitted to its demands, creating ecosystems as complex and stratified as modern ones. perhaps more so, given the extended time span allowing specialization. The great rivers of the Cretaceous. Rivers during the Cretaceous were enormous, draining vast continental areas and creating floodplains hundreds of kilometers wide. The Western Interior Seaway divided North America, with rivers flowing into it from both sides. These rivers supported rich ecosystems: fish, crocodilians, turtles, and dinosaurs. Hadrosaurs likely spent much time near water. Their duck-like bills adapted for aquatic feeding, as well as terrestrial browsing. Spinosaurus, the sail-backed theropod, inhabited North African rivers, its crocodile-like snout and conical teeth suggesting a diet heavy in fish. Rivers created arteries through the landscape, concentrating life. During dry seasons, animals gathered at shrinking water sources, predators following the herds. Fossils often accumulate in river deposits, bones washed into channels during floods, buried by sediment and preserved. These deposits create fossil bone beds, sometimes containing thousands of bones from multiple individuals and species. The rivers also shaped dinosaur migration patterns. Herds likely followed river valleys, moving seasonally between feeding grounds, just as modern animals migrate along rivers in Africa or South America. Rivers were highways, connecting ecosystems, distributing nutrients from uplands to lowlands, supporting the productivity that allowed such enormous animals to exist in great numbers. Understanding ancient river systems helps paleontologists interpret fossil sites and reconstruct the ancient world.